Welcome to your Directors Club of America podcast and backstage pass to the biggest names in the game, the power players. I'm Jennifer Gelhaus, your co-host, along Kyle Lacroix. Today, we invite you to listen to a conversation with John Wilkening. He is the general manager at North Hills Club in Raleigh, North Carolina. Enjoy this episode and make sure to subscribe. And if you want to keep the conversation going, we invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, comment on our posts, and let us know what you think. Remember, no filter needed. Enjoy. Welcome to Power Players. Today, we welcome John Wilkening. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jennifer. Thank you. Appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you being here. We like to start with Kyle's burning questions. So I'm going to let Kyle go right ahead and hit you hard with the first question.
Hey,
All right,
hey,
let's go.
John, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. First question, let's just jump into the deep end of the pool. From a GM perspective, why are director of rackets so criminally underpaid, and what can they do about that to be able to fix it?
I think you have a different paradigm depending on which club you're at, what part of the country you're at. You have clubs that have core product. You take a club like ours, and our core product is probably tennis, although we've expanded to pickleball and padel, swim, food and beverage, racket sports, no golf course. So when the investment isn't going into the golf course, you'll see a lot more of it obviously going into racket sports. So I think that finding the right fit for the right director at the right time makes a big difference. When I was coming up, and I'll speak a little bit about this later this week, is when I was coming up in formal club management, they focused about this much on two seconds on racket sports because it's just the stepchild out in the back of the property that keeps a couple of the members happy, and there's no ROI or investment into it. All the money ends up getting dumped into the golf course. Obviously, when it comes to clubs, food and beverage is a big hot spot. So they just don't think, we were never taught to invest in those areas. Although it's starting to change. I'll be honest with you, Kyle. I was just telling Jennifer that at CMAA National Convention this year, there was a big focus on racket sports and the importance of it in the private club setting, and the growth of it. They've pulled a lot of statistics up there, showed a lot of what's going on. Obviously, pickleball taking over immensely. Padel is now, they put a padel court right in the middle of the conference center, showing the growth of padel, and obviously tennis being the master of them all. But I think that the value was never taught to some of us on how to go into our boardroom and say, how do I really make them understand that investing in the people is going to have a great ROI? And we've been able to do that here. I think North Hills is top 5% when talking with Mark McMahon. He'll say that we're a top 1% when it comes to how we pay our people or we invest in our people. But the return is incredible on the member satisfaction side, on the value for the dues side. So I think that it's coming. I just think that it took a little while for the industry to catch up and to understand that, hey, it's not just golf, it's not just the only product. Racket sports is a core product too. Although your standard golf club, people may not join for it, but my gosh, if you get the right person, they can certainly give them another amenity that they can find value for their dues dollars every month.
Yeah, I feel like most clubs at least, don't really invest in their people.
Mhm.
They invest in their facilities, millions and millions of dollars, and not on the people. And I think that has such a direct impact on everything from management to member satisfaction. So is that something that's emphasized, I don't know, at the CMAA or in any kind of education for GMs?
Yeah, it changes like anything else. So again, what we were taught decades ago in club management versus what we're taught now the trend is it's all about the people. You'll see, you were talking about your CSRE programs, it's all about the people, the education. There's so much more education now in racket sports than there's ever been. And then clubs need to value that and they need to pay accordingly for it. My racket sports, I'll be honest with you, my racket sports director, I'm paid really well for my club, and my racket sports director makes more than I do, and I'm glad. I hope he makes even more. My assistant does really well. I think getting in, and I'm working on their compensation to hopefully even increase it even more, because they're out there, they're the ones doing the hard work. They're the ones out there on the court sweating. They're the ones making sure that the facilities, the surrounding facilities are excellent, making sure that the courts are at their peak condition, the lights are perfect, all these things. I'm just the lucky one to sit back and hire great people and hold them accountable, right? So I think that it's just a paradigm change on what is the value of a racket sports director. And yes, in club management, the education is really starting to get there. And I think you'll see that change happening because you're all being educated a lot more than you ever were about, hey, my worth actually is a lot more. And if we stick together, Jared Chirico put us all together, and he's a champion for this. And you see him with the Directors Club just champion for these things. Everybody sticking together to make sure they understand that what their worth is. I do think it will come along. That's the roundabout long answer of it. But it's just get the right GMs to get into the boardroom to talk to their boards to make them understand that investing in the racket sports area, whether you be a giant golf club or not, is a huge benefit to your membership. And I think that it starts with us. It starts with the GMs getting in there and making them understand that.
100%. So what are some things that you look for when you're hiring a director of rackets?
Oh boy, you're taking away some of my Thursday talk, Kyle, on that. For me, what I'm looking for is something. What I've learned through working with various racket sports organizations is that what we're looking for from our seat in the GM is entirely different than what directors think we're looking for. I tell a story about when I hired my current director, Jason Kinder, about what I was looking for, because I spent enough time listening to what my members were looking for, a massive search committee, and then surveys, and it came out, you'd be surprised what comes out of it. And when you sit across from me, I don't care how well you can hit a forehand, a backhand. I don't care whether you won this great big thing in college or any of that stuff. You probably wouldn't be sitting in front of me if you couldn't hit a great forehand or show somebody how to hit a serve over a net, right? So again, us in this chair in the general manager field, we are not educated on racket sports, unfortunately. We don't know these things. What we want to know is, can you own something? Can you own your area? Can you run your department? Can you get great work out of good people? That's what we're concerned about. It's more of the emotional intelligence side. I want to know, can you build relationships and get results? I already know that you can run a clinic. I already know that you can teach a lesson. I already know these things. I don't want to talk about that for 1 second. I want to know, can you own your areas? And so when you sit down in front of me, if you start telling me how great you are on the court, I'm shut down immediately. I don't care, and I don't know what you're talking about. And I've been in the industry a long time, right? So what I want to hear is, this is how I work with my team. This is how I motivate my team. This is how I make sure that my grounds are taken care of. This is how I make sure the maintenance team understands how I want the courts perfect every day, every night. I want you to understand that I'm dedicated. When you're going to be at the level that my director is at in pay, I expect that my facilities are great 7 days a week, right? It's not, hey, I don't work weekends, so not my problem. The lines are coming up on court 15, right? I want to make sure that somebody can own their area so I don't have to own it, because I have no idea what I'm doing, right? You're the smart one, not me. Can you hire good people, right? I want to know, can you hire good people? When you do hire them, can you get them to understand that we are in the pursuit of excellence always? We're never going to rest. We're never going to stop. We're going to be on a trajectory of continuing to grow and improve. If it's somebody that just wants to work status quo, let them work down the road. That's not going to be us. So when you sit across from me, what I want to know is, first and foremost, is, can you build relationships? When you're on the courts, you know exactly that you have these great relationships with the people across from you. You're affable, so that you have a great personality. You're not only credible, but you're affable. These people trust what you're going to do. You're really committed to making people better, not only just the members across from you, but your team. And that's what I want to hear about. So if you want to hear the quick story, I'll tell you about when I hired my director, unless I'm just rambling on.
No, please, John, go.
Go ahead.
So When I hired my director, I had a search after a long process of going through a search, and our club was committed to top pay, hiring the best that they could possibly get. Nothing was no holds barred. And with that, I think that our search company, our club had hired Mark McMahon, and he delivered me some absolutely incredible world class people, put some world class people in front of me. And again, with somebody like me who is not educated in racket sports, all I had to do was go by a feeling, ask the questions I heard in the committee meetings, and go by a feeling that I got. I knew what my members wanted. They would tell me every single day.
Mm.
And so I sat in front of these great people, and they would sit across from me. And like I said, they were telling me how great they were and all their accomplishments and all these wonderful things. And I thought, man, they are just so great. And they were just wonderful people. And then I sat across from Jason, my wife and I at dinner. My wife, who is much smarter than I am, and we sat across from Jason at dinner, and Jason sat down and we started talking and got into some conversations about where he lived and what he was doing and small talk. And the small talk took off. And Jason started telling us a story. My wife would ask, do you have any children and things like that, just small talk. And Jason got into a very personal story about how he and his wife had a young child and how they were so fortunate and lucky to have this child. And we got into a story about Jason's tie that he was wearing that day because I wasn't wearing one. We don't have to be that formal in this world anymore. And he started talking about who the tie came from. It was real important and sentimental to him. And we got into these conversations, and before you know it, we had been talking for a half an hour, 40 minutes, and never talked about racket sports one time.
Mm-hmm.
Not for 1 second. And he got up to use the restroom or something. My wife and I looked at each other and said, I think we've got our guy. He made you. Jeffrey Gitmer wrote the Little Red Book of Selling, and he said in there that if they like you, they believe you, and they trust you, then they'll buy from you. And Jason, within that 30 minutes, made me like him, believe him, and trust him within 30 minutes, and he never talked about racket sports for 1 minute. The other guys I met, incredible, absolutely incredible. The men and women that I met, incredible. But Jason was able to build a relationship with me that I loved this guy in 30 minutes. And I said, my members are going to want that. And I already knew that Mark would never put somebody in front of me that wasn't going to be great on court. When you talk about what I'm looking for, I'm no different than any other general manager. Of course, we got on the questions about tell me how you've owned your areas. Tell me about what you think about A, B, and C. We got into those questions. Of course we did. But they were secondary to the relationship part of it, the building relationships. And then it was producing results in those areas of importance, one and two. So anyway, that's my story.
That's an awesome story. And I think what you just answered and the way you answered it should be required viewing for every racket sports professional to how to get that director role, because it's so true. And people are everything. And I always say you have to love the people and use the money. Don't love the money and use the people. But I think if you're really good at loving the people, the money's obviously going to come. So with that being said, let's dive back into that compensation structure. What can a director of rackets do to just really cement and hammer home that they need to get paid?
Sure. So one, I think it's important that you all stick together on what your worth is. If you have directors out there taking jobs for 50 grand a year, and there's a whole bunch of them, there's always going to be GMs out there willing to hire them, right? So I hope that you all get together and you stick with that a little bit. Two, when I go to a club, you've got to look and assess the size. Our club is actually pretty small comparatively to some of these big clubs. But if you look at my director, he's an assistant director, they're paid really super well because they have created a department that can bring that revenue to it. Now, do I want them focused on bringing revenue in? Somebody that sits in my seat, a lot of us GMs are being taught that revenue is not the answer. It's member experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so when these people come in, if you've got a $50,000 director out there and they can't own something and they can't build relationships, and that's why they're taking jobs at 50 grand, what kind of member experience do you think that your membership's going to have. So again, the education isn't on the director side, it's on the GM side. I think the directors know what they're worth, but then again, don't walk into a club or a public institution that has no money and demand 300 grand, because it's just not going to be there. It's not.
Right.
Those jobs are, again, for me, I have to know that you can own something, and there's too many pros and too many assistants that have never owned anything. They've just gotten a title and they're out there. And so when they sit across from me for these multiple six-figure jobs, they haven't had they've been in the industry a long time. They're a great pro, they're a great assistant, but they can't own something. So I think the push from the assistant directors, the pros, to the directors, hey, let me get involved, let me own something, that so that I can go and earn these big money jobs. But also, when you get in front of somebody, you have to make them understand the value by, what is it that you want me to do? I can go out there and teach lessons 40 hours a week at a nice rate, and I can earn a fortune. Heck, I can go teach lessons 50 hours a week and earn a fortune. And if you come to my club, if you really wanted to, you could teach lessons 80 hours a week, because you can never get enough pros out there. But or do you want to pay me so I can work on the member experience? So I can focus on the rest of my team getting that great work out of good people. If I'm on the courts, I can't see everything, but I need to earn a living too. And I'm a director in my industry. I'm a master in my industry. I'm educated. I deserve to earn. This is what our industry is earning. And I don't want to have to go out there and grind for it every day, but I'm willing to. And I think the education from directors to GMs getting involved, mashing the two industries together, is, hey, we can go out there and teach, and who's handling the overhead? Who's handling everything else? Who's getting the good work out of the great people? Who's watching the shop and the store, if you will? But you're going to have to figure out how to get your base comp higher, because I see too many of these people coming in and saying, okay, your base comp is way down here, but you're going to make $150,000, $200,000, and then they tell you, okay, get out there and earn it. And now you're saying, oh my gosh, I hope it doesn't rain today so I can get on the courts, or oh my gosh, I hope that people don't go on vacations during this time, and you're sweating it out. Get those base comps up a little bit so people can be a little more selective, so they can focus more on the member experience. I think that's how we start pushing this narrative a little bit of member experience. All these magazines, all the education you're seeing, it's the big thing right now. So I guess directors understanding that as well. So hope that helps.
Oh, said, I think whenever you see a director that's on court 40 hours or whatever a week, it really reflects on just the quality of everything else. The tournaments, the admin stuff, things fall through the cracks. Your timesheets or your budget start looking sloppy.
The
Like,
pro
it
shop
reflects on those
stuffers,
things too, not just the members, because when you have a director who's on the court, they're only interacting with those people. The max you can have on a court is probably about 6 people. But if you're off the court, then you're interacting with everybody that comes to your facility. So, yeah, said.
walking through and clapping when your pros and your assistants are doing a great job running a great clinic. Imagine rooting on your junior program, your kids that are out there walking out, giving
Yeah.
high fives. Imagine speaking with the parents while the kids are on courts and walking over and saying to your pro, hey, that was really great, but maybe we could tweak it a little bit this way to improve that experience. Walking over and seeing, oh my gosh, we have the light out over here, or looking at the USTA matches and rooting on your team, your home team. That's the member experience. That in the court and you're teaching a lesson or you're teaching a small clinic, that's all falling through the cracks, like you said, and it's just not what we're looking for from a culture or a standpoint, a member experience standpoint, if you will.
I know, John, you've mentioned several times already about education, and I know on education, but let's take that to another level. Education and certification. Certification
Sure.
doesn't always mean education and vice versa. What is your take on certification? Or does it matter that we have the letters next to her name? Is there specific types you're looking for? What does it all matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, I that's a great question because it's something that I hold pretty near and dear. I'm big on education, but it has to be the right kind. I don't want it to be the education that I can buy. It's got to be education that is meaningful and it hits a lot of various topics. When you take a certain program, and I'll get to some of that in a second, but when you take a certain program, and if that program teaches you how to be a better person, I need to see part of that in the educational part. I need to see that racket sports is wide. So I want to see, again, is it teaching you budgets? Or when you come in, do you know a lot about racket sports and you don't understand how a budget works? And now I got to have to spend that time. Does it make you understand? Does it teach you how to work with your team? How the emotional intelligence side of things, the motivational side of things. Does it teach you how to manage your facilities better? Does it teach you how to work with not just your team, but to be part of the team in your entire clubhouse, to break down the silos? Um, I think that there's a lot of education out, or is it just teaching you how to run a clinic better, right? Which I'm not saying it's not important. It is. It's not an either or, it's an and also. It needs to teach you everything. But what I'm looking for from my seat, I like the CRSE program because I think it touches on a lot of various education that gets outside of the box, and there's a lot of sharing in there. There is a lot of emotional intelligence in there. There is a lot of paradigm change in there. A lot of teaches a lot of proactivity, which I like. And although I've never taken it, I've had some people that have gone through it that I really like what they're learning in the CRSE program. And there's a lot of great programs out there. Is a certification next to your name important? What a certification tells me when all the letters are next to them is that not only are they willing, not only can they be taught
Mhm.
and they're willing to learn, is that they're committed to bettering themselves. And sometimes I want to see that they're committed to bettering themselves. I will invest every dime my club lets me in education, and we have a massive education budget. Thank you, to my incredible board. But are willing to invest in anybody that's willing to get involved. And because we want you to better yourself, because it only just translates to a better experience for our members and our teams. And so is it important? I would say it's important. Is it everything? It might not be everything, but again, it depends what you're looking to do with your future.
Yep.
So I think that some of us in these roles, these high paying director clubs, are saying, hey, listen, I don't know what a CRSE program, I don't know what the whole tennis part of it is, but I do the fact that you are willing to invest in yourself and that you're willing to take time out to think a little bit.
And I also feel that it's about not so much where you go to, it's what you do when you get there. I'm someone, I have two master's degrees, but I'm not a big fan of formal education. I'm not telling people, hey,
Mhm.
you need to go back to school. For me, I
Mhm.
believe everyone needs education, but how that looks and forms can be completely different. I'm a bit of a geek, so I don't mind the formal education, but not everybody's like that. And I'm fine with that as long as you're showing that you're continuously improving and you're developing and that you have that hunger, because there's a difference between being willing and being eager, right?
Right.
Like when I was starting off in my career, a lot of people didn't like waking up at 5 a.m. and having to sweep all the courts. For me, I was eager to do it. And I think that's a big thing too, is that you have to be eager to learn. It's not just, oh, I have to take this course or I have to get this certification next to my name to get this. It's you should want to do that. And I think that's a really big key, is the difference between being willing and being eager. And I will take someone that's eager all the time.
Sure. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Another part of that, if you think about some of these educational programs, is you're building a community of your peers too with that, which is also great. I think sharing amongst one another We all borrow ideas. Some people say I stole that from someone. We like to say borrow. We borrow them. We all borrow ideas from each other. I don't know when the last time, probably like 1946 was the last time a club manager came up with a new idea, but we just keep borrowing ideas from one another and maybe enhancing them a little differently. And that's another thing that I really like is that people are sharing their experiences on some of these things. And what are they doing here? What are they doing there? And I love your community because the racket sports community is so willing to help out one another. And he wants everybody to succeed. And it's just wonderful to see this. And so what's working here, hey, maybe that'll work for you. Give it a try, and maybe it won't, right? Every club is different. Every area of the country might be a little different. But boy, I'll tell you, it's some of these educational sessions, again, the focus being on the making you a better person, helping you invest in yourself, building relationships in the community, teaching you the things that's going to take for you to be a successful director when you have to sit across from somebody tougher than I am. My director is pretty tough on me, and it's the opposite, but tougher than I am, and be able to have those conversations with them and influence them to say, hey, listen, just let me do my thing and just take the roadblocks down in front of, help me take the roadblocks down in front of me so I can do what I do best. And I think for us to have the confidence through some of that education, and again, I'm not saying a degree from Yale or Harvard. I think that for us to sit across and say, hey, listen, how can I support you? How can I help you? How can I knock the roadblocks down for you to succeed? But I'm not getting involved in what you do because I don't know what you do. I hired the expert. You go do what you do. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I think for us to have that confidence, it comes from a little bit of having a little bit of that education.
Yeah. John, everyone has an opinion, right? And you know that more than probably anyone at your club is the GM. Everyone is eager to share their opinions, right? So, how do you raise the bar and stay away from just keeping that status quo? Because we just had that conversation with Rob Oosterhouse, and he said something that really resonated with me, and that was that people are too afraid about keeping their job that they don't actually do their job, and
Mhm.
that fear kills innovation, which it does. And I think in our culture of, especially in a country club setting or in a regular club setting where you have members that you're trying to satisfy and make happy, there's a lot of fear around standing your ground and doing what you believe is going to ultimately be the best solution. How do you balance people's opinions with what you actually believe in to be a solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, a director, a general manager, it's the same thing is that you have to create and educate those around you that you're the expert in the room. My board is incredible, but when I first started years ago, club governance was not good in our boardroom. And what it took was for me to say, hey, listen, I'm going to help us move along here. I'm the industry expert, and I'm going to tell you how it's supposed to work. And I was lucky enough that again, the opinion is no, we want to go this way, we want to go that way. I just kept sticking with it. And the ability to influence others is an amazing asset. And something that, again, should be taught more is how do you influence others? And so we had a big division when my director was hired in our club of a separated membership, divided membership. And again, that relationship and being able to influence people, get out there and create excellence, right? And people will forget all about it. And I think that to get back to what you had said, in order to you got to push the opinions off because you have to be confident that you're the industry expert. You really do. And as you continue to create excellence, people will start to believe you and the opinions will start to go away. It will, because if you're creating this excellence, they won't be able to focus on the opinions of it. If you give everybody a red car in your memberships, you're going to have complaints that you didn't give blue cars out. But if you continue to create excellence, people start to forget about things. And how do you keep pushing towards excellence? It's going to start with leadership.
Mhm.
It's going to start with your director and his team. It's going to start with your general manager. It's going to start at your board level, and the understanding that I'm going to brag for 1 second. When I first got here, the neighborhood club, we've since, in a matter of just 4 years or 4.5 years, we've become a distinguished club with elite status. We're one of 20 platinum clubs in the country. Jason received a wonderful award through Distinguished Clubs and Boardroom Magazine for our member experience index. We've done some really good things. As you saw, we were Private Commercial Club of the Year through Champions of Tennis RSI Magazine. We're one of 50 premier facilities, all premier facilities through the USTA. We've done all this in a short time because when Jason and I came in around the same time, we said, hey, we're going to push for excellence. But keep in mind, if you push too hard for excellence too fast, it won't happen. Slow, steady, sustainable, repeatable. So when you sit down and you think strategy and your strategic vision, your strategic plan, you need to sit down in your racket sports area and say, hey, this is my strategic plan. I'm going to work with my GM. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go. Don't confuse a strategic plan with a facilities master plan. It's strategy. And so we said, as we're going to create excellence, we're not going to stop. And along the way, you'll see I get these flip charts out. We draw a line and we say, along the way, while we're creating excellence, some people are only meant to work to this part up the ladder, and then they'll fall off and you'll hire somebody else. And somebody's meant to work till this part and they'll fall off. It's just the way it's going to work. You can't take it personally. You have to make sure that you're hiring great people that understand that. And when they come in, you say, hey, listen, if you're going to work status quo, I'll like you a long time. I'll buy you a beer anytime you want. I'm just not going to pay you anymore. But we're going to continue to grow and pursue excellence, and we're not going to stop. So it's going to become exhausting, or you're in or you're out. And along the way, we're going to have some fun. We're going to make some money. You ready to go? And if you do it right, these people are going to be ready to go. So again, I've overused the word paradigm, I think, but it's just that paradigm of, hey, where is your leadership? If your leadership wants to maintain status quo, you're going to maintain status quo. So get in there and work for leadership at your board level, your GM level that says, hey, we're going to continue to push towards excellence, and everything will come along with it. I promise you.
That's great. So you're like a seasoned, experienced, world-class GM, which is fantastic. But one of my favorite quotes is, "You only get experience just after you needed it." So clearly, there were moments in your career where you needed the experience and you didn't have it. So can you share with us a big blunder that you made, a disappointing day at the office that from that point on you just nailed it, you got it right after that?
Yeah, I think the big turning point in my career, my ego. When I go back maybe 10 years ago or so, and I've always been able to create results or get results at any club I've been at or anywhere I've been. And it hit my ego. And I don't want to, I see it in some racket sports with some directors. I do. I'll be honest with you. Ego is the killer, and it really is. And so I was working at a club for a super smart guy that one time made me realize that I was a really great operator. And that's how I was getting my results. But the reason that I wasn't at the top, what was keeping me from earning those top income level jobs, was my ego. And because I was the great operational side. Again, uh, to put it in perspective on your terms, I could serve the ball, I could hit a great forehand, I could hit a great backhand. But what I was missing was the philosophy. I really wasn't paying attention. I don't need to hear that. That doesn't apply to me. I'm great. The philosophy on how we just continue to work to get good work out of great people, how we help grow people, how we help people win. And my focus every single day here is helping people win, whether it be my team, my entire team, or it be my members. I just want them. How do I get to yes for every one of them? How do I help them win? How do I help my board members win? And I was really missing that. I really didn't care whether you won or not. I wanted to win. I wanted the credit. I wanted everything. And the biggest blunder in my career was honestly when this gentleman named Ron Woolard sat me down and said, man, I'll tell you what, you got to put the ego aside and you have to learn how to realize that it's not about you anymore, it's about them. And the more that you can show people it's about them and it's not about you, the better you're going to do, the further you're going to go. And man, I thought, of course, my initial reaction was, I'm not listening to him. I don't even, but I said, I'm going to give it a try. Let me, instead of going down and arguing with that member, no, I'm not going to, we don't serve omelets for lunch here. It's breakfast only. I'm going to say yes and see what happens. Oh my gosh. And then I built emotional bank account with that member. And all of a sudden I took a member who was not great to a lot of us to what became a big fan. And I said, let's fun. Started doing this and getting to yes for my team and really focusing. And oh my gosh, I saw the difference. I saw that the difference in the way my members behaved, their experience. I saw the difference in the way my team behaved. I retained my employees. Well, my gosh, now my employees follow me where I go. I have employees that stay a long time. I think that just knocking the ego down and saying, hey, I'm here to help others win. And it's not about what I can do, it's what can I get others to do? How can I get great work out of really good people and get to yes for everyone? So really, I'll never forget that day where I said I have to just knock my ego down. And it creeps up a little bit now and then. I have to admit it does. I think we all do. And a little bit of it is healthy, I think. But really just wanting to get to wins for everybody else and realizing it's not about me anymore.
Yeah, it's something I speak with to my clients a lot, which is if you think you're too good, it's going to be hard for you to get any better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's great. You mind if I borrow that line?
It's yours. Take it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Am I
My
crazy to
goodness.
think that us coming from tennis and maybe even in golf, being individual sports, our egos tend to be bigger
Mhm.
just because we're used to the world revolving around us and how great we are.
Jennifer, I think that again, like I said, a little bit of ego is healthy, but when what you have to understand and realize, and what we're going to want to see from you is leadership.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of ego that goes along with leadership. And the hardest transition in the world that I have seen in whether it be in your area, the golf area, even in our area, although our organization does a super job at it, that's probably their main focus, is that transition from management to leadership.
Mm.
When you manage things and you lead people. So you need to have a little bit of ego to go out and lead people and say, hey, I am the expert in the room and I do have the bigger business card. So I do want it this way. Although all of us is smarter than any of us. So I'm happy to listen. Let's come up with best practice together, what works together. But at the end of the day, if it's not working, I'm going to pull the bigger business card and we're going to do it my way for now. And so there does have to be a little bit of ego there, and that's okay. And heck, some of you, I've done my research on the two of you. You're outstanding, excellent at what you do. So you should have a little bit of ego, right? And a lot of people, Jared, who put us together, my director Jason, a lot of these people should have a little bit of ego. They've worked really hard, and they're really committed to what they do, their cause, and they're committed to helping others win. And little ego is kind of healthy. That's all right.
I think to add to Jennifer's point, though, I think you see it especially in racket sports. Like Jennifer and I have a background in tennis. And if you think about tennis as the sport, it's individual, and you have to be, to get to a high level, you have to be incredibly selfish. Everything revolves around you. Your match times, the times you eat breakfast, the times you eat dinner, the family vacations are planned around national tournaments. Everything revolves around you. So a lot of times the best players don't always make the best coaches, the best managers, the best directors because of that sort of independent sport lifestyle. Am I right, Jen?
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
You can root that out, and you're gonna hopefully be able to see that. Again, are they talking when you're sitting in my seat, are they talking about themselves or are they talking about others?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And then something that we always get into on the podcast is the whole work-life balance concept. You're a GM, who knows how many hours you actually work. And I think that's an actual thing that holds us back in the industry is that because a lot of times we get paid by the hour, we tend to see everything by the hour. How many hours am I spending on this? And it doesn't come down to that necessarily. What are your thoughts on work-life balance? I don't even know how many hours you work a week. I can imagine it's a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about me. Here's another one of those things, do as I say, not as I do. My director will tell you, my club will tell you that I listen, I'm here because I want to be the amount of hours, because I want to be. My wife certainly wishes it was home. I was home a lot more. It's really not even about being committed. It's just I really love what I do. I love being here. I love my team. It's a passion for me. And I know that you both feel the same way about your industries, but work-life balance, you what makes you best is not just being on the court. It's your friends, it's your family, it's your pets, it's your time to get away, it's your being able to go out and rest, relax, and recharge. Stephen Covey will tell you it's about sharpening the saw, right? If you listen or read the Seven Habits. And that sharpening the saw is really important if you think about just the term, right? So if you're out there and you're sawing away, if you don't take time to sharpen the blades, you're just going to be sawing. It's going to be even harder and harder to keep sawing that log. So you've got to take your time out to reflect and refresh. And I had a great president one time tell me that you've got to make sure you take the time. A lot of your job is to sit down and think. And there's not enough emphasis on that. It seems if I walked by your office and your door is closed and I saw you with your hand on your head and your eyes were closed, somebody might say, "What are you doing? Get out there and do something." You are doing something that's very important. You need to have time to think.
Yeah.
So I think that the work-life balance is, in my world, we have to get that base pay up for our directors. We have to get that base pay up for our assistant directors, our pros. We pay our pros an hourly rate on top of their court time. Yeah, sure, it's not a lot. We have small salaries for some of our pros as well. But I think getting that base rate up is super important because when you paying that kind of money as a member to get out on the court and you have an expectation, you're expecting the best. If this person is burned out and they've taught 48 hours that week and they've had a bunch of tough junior clinics and they had to pull a pro shop shift for some reason or whatever it might be, you might not be getting the best out of that person.
Oh yeah.
So if the compensation is really good, I promise you, you're not going to be fighting to get on the court 55 hours a week. But if the compensation is not good, you're going to be fighting to get on the court 55 hours a week. And you're not at your best when you're at 55 hours a week. And people at clubs should want you at your best at all times. So they should encourage you. My racket sports team, there's no vacation time. They can take as much as they want. They can take the time off that they want. I have an assistant director that last week, Friday, out and playing golf. My director goes and sees his family, does certain. I think it's so important to be able to take the time to do the things that you love. We already know you love racket sports, but to do the things you love with those who you love,
Yeah.
so that you can come in and continue to love what you're doing, because you will stop loving it eventually. It will become a job, and we don't want that anymore because then your passion dies off. So get the base pay up for these people, get the compensation up for these people, and that's for all of the GMs in the industry, the boards in the industry, the clubs, directors. Hold your ground. You're worth it. You put a lot of work into what you do, and take that time that you deserve and that you need so that you can get out there and come back with the saw sharpened so you can be your best and deliver your best for the members and the member experience.
That's so well said. The nature of my job is more seasonal, and I've been doing the seasonal thing in the Northeast for a long time, and the summers are always crazy. And I've had those moments where you're on the court 8, 10 hours a day, day after day. It comes to a point where you're like the stuff that comes out of your mouth is just like insane. What am I even saying? After your 14th hour in a 24 or 48-hour period, you're like just saying stupid stuff that the members don't deserve. They're paying way too much money to be hearing that. So that makes
It
total
has to be
sense. And
active.
you know what's also crazy is a lot of the time the directors don't even have an office. So I think not having an office, which I still don't have an office, like a proper office. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, you're talking about taking the time to think and shut a door and like just
recover and put some thought into something. I think it's so important. And I think that a lot of people overlook this in the industry. Just the fact that a lot of times we don't have a proper office. Don't you agree, Kyle?
No, I think having that personal space just gives you the ability to think not only outside the box, but to give yourself time, the space, the silence, the loneliness. I think a part of it is you have to be alone sometimes, because when you're a director, you are always on. If you're on court, you're the star of the show. You are running that three-ring circus. So it's important to have a silent, safe space where you can just be creative, let it all get out. But when you're in the middle of it, it's chaos.
And without
You're
getting
not a,
interrupted.
yeah, you're not a tool. You're not a tool. You're a person and you're a professional. Just like any of the COOs or GMs are, just like any director of golf would be, you're not a tool. You're not a ball machine. You're a person, you're a professional, an expert in your field, and you should be treated as such. You're a director, for crying out loud. And even assistant directors, my goodness, even the pros that are on the course, you're not a ball machine. You're a person that is trying to create an experience. So you need to be treated that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Kyle, do you have any more questions for John? Any more topics you want to get into?
Yeah, I think we could talk to John for another 6 hours. He's got tons of gems. I think the biggest takeaway from this, and obviously I know John is quite popular in the industry and it's easy to see why, but I think after this podcast airs, he's going to be even more popular. But I think the big takeaway from this that I got is, and I think this kind of sums up John in a nutshell, which is he loves what he does and he loves the people he does it for. And I think that's incredibly important. And we need to see more of that in our industry. So that's great. Thank you, John, for your time. We appreciate it. And I know this episode's going to be great.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you having me on and letting me share a little bit. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see you again soon. And if I can be a resource to anybody, please, I hope anybody is to always look me up, and I'm happy to help any way I can.
Thank you so much. This is going to be so great for everybody to hear.
Great.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.